Hi everyone, Rachel from Book Piles. Welcome to a video. Funny enough, this week I thought I would share my thoughts on The Miles High Club by T.L. Swan. This is a bit of a spoiler for my September wrap-up, but I finished book 4 and I thought I would do my thoughts on the whole series, in case someone is maybe thinking about reading the series. If they haven't already, why haven't you already? So I have all 4 books on my Kindle, but I ended up actually buying a physical copy of one of the books as well. Slight pause, and hopefully this will be the thumbnail. We hope. So I do have one physical copy, and they're a decent sized book. This came in at no page numbers. Oh, there we go. So that's 440. Still 450 precisely. And I would say that the others, although I don't know for sure, I didn't write that information down, are in the same vein. Have I got this page still pulled up? I have. I will insert pictures as I talk about each book, but those are your 4 covers as it is anyway. There is going to be an epilogue bind up of the 4 couples sometime. I forgot to look. I have heard it is February 23. I've got something in my eye, but I'm not 100% certain about that. But I'm sure if you follow T.L. Swan, if you got the wrong way, I'm going to have problems. We're going to have problems. Can we straighten? Hopefully it'll be alright. I've a sore knee. If you follow T.L. Swan, you will find that information, and I certainly will be keeping an eye out because I want to read it. So I'll give you a quick overview of the 4 books, and then I'll tell you my pros and cons of the series. So book 1, I've got paper down here. Book 1 is called The Stopover, and that's Jameson and Emily's story, and Jameson is the CEO of Miles Media, big multi-billion dollar company, offices in New York and London, and they go to parts in between and all sorts of things. So Jameson and Emily actually meet on a plane coming back from London. Cat. I'm home alone and I've got the door open. Okay, just keep moving. Keep moving. So they meet on a plane coming back from London, and she's had a pretty nasty experience. Nasty's not the right word. Horrible experience at the airport, and they upgraded to first class, and they put her next to Jameson. And he calls himself Jim, and that's all she knows about him. As they are approaching New York, they are turned to Boston for bad weather, and they end up having to stay the night. And of course they've been bantering the whole flight and flirting the whole flight, so obviously things happen at the hotel room, and it's like devil may care, we're not going to see each other again, let's just get it on. Fast forward a year, and she ends up working at the company, not knowing that it's his company when she takes the job and she's on her first day. It's not until she's taken to meet the boss that she realizes who it is. And then their love story just goes on from there. Probably the most outstanding scene in the book for me is when she makes him go camping, and that's very funny, and if I remember rightly, I actually laughed out loud properly rather than just chuckled or whatever. I certainly enjoyed the banter and all of that sort of thing. So it's a, you know, it's a love story, it's a romance, contemporary romance, so they're going to get together. There's some misunderstandings along the way that she's got to iron out with him. He's a little bit dominant, if I remember rightly, but you know, they get together, and we get little glimpses of the other brothers in the first book, which I like. I like when, if we've got a series about siblings, we get glimpses of the siblings, so that, you know, build up anticipation and excitement to read their stories. Okay, so book 2 is The Takeover, which is the one I have a physical copy of as well as an ebook copy of. And this is Tristan and Claire's story. And this starts out a little bit hate, and then obviously becomes love. I wouldn't say it's a true hate to love because the hate ends very quickly, but it doesn't start out on the best footing. He works in the division of the company that buys out smaller media companies that are failing and, turns them around and sells them on, that sort of thing. And he's taken an interest in her company, which her late husband started. So she is very anti-selling the company, even if she's, there's basically 2 staff members and they eat bread all week sort of thing. It's not quite there, but she's not giving it up for dear life because of it's her late husband's baby, basically. So they don't get off on a good footing. And then they next encounter each other at a conference where he is one of the keynote speakers, which she didn't realise. And she goes into this lecture and he is introduced and she's like, oh, and she wants to leave. This bit sticks out to me because I think it's hilarious. They haven't seen each other for, I'm going to say 6 months, but I don't know what the time frame truly is. And literally she's like, I'm just getting out of here. As he looks around the room, he connects eyes with her and she's like, I'm getting out of here. And she gets up to leave and he's like, I can't remember her last name. Anderson, of course I do. Claire Anderson, sit back down. Which, that just tickled me anyway. And then they talk through their stuff and then they connect and then everything goes on. She is the mother of 3 boys, and the whole interaction with him and her sons is very funny, and also very touching. There are some really touching moments in the book. So I liked The Takeover enough, and this seems to be the general opinion in BookTube. This is like a real fan favourite, The Takeover. I really liked it, so I wanted a physical copy because if anything ever happened to my Kindle and I either didn't get another one to get all my books back, I have a copy of The Takeover. So book 3, I had to go and look at book 3 because I have no recollection of this book at all, and I have read it, but I couldn't tell you anything about it. And it's interesting when I went to read all the reviews about how everyone was loving it all and all these scenes and the scene in chapter 21, so I had to go and find chapter 21. I didn't remember any of this, so it and at the time did not leave a lasting impression on me. Book 3 is the Casanova, and it's Elliot and Kate's story, and this is a little bit, again, hate to love, and a little bit you've got mail. So she joins a dating site or a pen pal site or something and corresponds with a bloke who she can pour out all her stuff to and how she hates the boss and everything, and it's the boss. I'm sure it is. That's the whole point of the story. I've actually decided that I'm going to reread it because everyone was raving about it so much. I'm like, I must have missed something when I was reading it, or I read it at a bad time, or there was another book that was far better at that moment than that one for it to just completely go out of my mind. So it's on my list to read again, basically. And then book 4, which I've just read and know a lot more about because it's a lot fresher, is The Do-Over, which is Christopher and Hayden. Now the book starts out with him being wound up by his brothers that he could not exist outside of his life of luxury, and he's offended by that, and he's like, I'm going to prove them, and he decides to take a year off work and go and backpack around the world, living on a very tight budget. I think he had 1 credit card. Yeah. And that was it. And he starts out in Barcelona and he ends up in a backpackers that has a geriatric room, I think they call it, or something along those lines now. And he arrives first, and I think he's got a couple of days on Hayden before she arrives. And when she arrives, she's shattered because he's come from London, she's come from America, so she's knackered, and she gets into her bottom bunk and is going to sleep when he barges in. And because it, bunks, he didn't even know there was anyone there, and he starts stripping off. So her first interaction with him is an eyeful. And she basically is not interested in meeting anyone. She's recovering from a breakup, and she just wants to have a bit of a change of scene and then go back to her life in rural America, basically. She's not interested in some rich playboy, basically, but she doesn't know he's a rich playboy, so he doesn't let on who he really is, which then causes some issues later in the book. But because she's not really interested, she blanks all his attempts at any sort of wooing or anything like that, and that just makes him want to do it more, and can he still do it, and can he make her like him? And then obviously things happen. There is a really nice third character interaction, which I don't really want to spoil for anyone who has yet to read the book, but I thought it was, initially I was like, why is this in here? But I actually ended up liking the way that it transpired. So yeah, it was really nice. So kind of my order of books, my favourite is The Takeover, which is why I have a physical copy, and my second favourite is actually The Do-Over. I am seriously thinking of buying physical copies for all of them, actually, in the end. So my order is book 2, The Takeover, book 4, The Do-Over, book 1, The Stopover, and book 3, The Casanova. But I'm going to reread The Casanova. I'm having a little break from my readathon this month. I might just read it. I can read these books. I think I read the first 2 books a day each and back to back, which I will come to in a minute. So my pros for the overall series: 1, it's a series of sexy blokes and their brothers, and the banter between the brothers is great, and the interactions with the parents when they happen is great. Overall, I really liked the series. I found it, like, it was sexy, and the banter and all of that was really cool. I do have some cons though, and they're just little niggly things, and probably one of them I wouldn't have even picked up on if I hadn't read books 1 and 2 back to back. So my problem with that was that after I read book 1 and then I got into book 2 and I started to read the sex scenes in book 2, I'm like, I've just read these. And it seemed to me, because I don't have a physical copies, I can't really go back and check this. I'm not faffing through the Kindle to try and do it. But my thought at the time when I read the first sort of big sex scene in the second book was, this is just straight out of book 1, and all she's done is change the names. And I just had that overriding thought throughout the book. It wasn't enough to cloud me from the book in any way, shape or form, because it is my favourite one of the series. But if I hadn't read it back to back, I wouldn't have picked up on that. And I then had a jump between the next books, so they could all be similar now, and I really don't know, because the gaps between the books were bigger. The other thing that it was enough to make me go, oh, okay, we've had this before as well. Both Jameson and Elliot spy on their women in the office through the CCTV. And while, I mean, the whole spying thing, you can decide whether you're happy or not about that. It was more that we've already had this from a brother. Could there not have been a different thing for book 3. So it was just the fact that both brothers ended up spying on women through the CCTV. I'm like, we could have had something different. And my other con is more this is not necessarily, how do I explain this? This is a nitpick that I have for any book. It's not specifically tailored to the Miles High Club. It happens to happen in these series, but I've had it happen in other books too. Now, if you don't really watch my videos, you don't really know much about me. I am a Kiwi. I now live in New Zealand, but I spent probably half of my adult life or more living in London. So I know England quite well. I know London really well. I know the home counties really well. And my biggest bugbear is when authors get the geography of London wrong. Now look, it may happen in other cities as well, but I don't know those cities enough to pick that out. But I've had instances, not in the Miles High Club, but I've had instances where someone has talked about the journey from Heathrow into London, and they've talked about the landmarks that they pass along the way, and I'm like, you don't pass those landmarks on the way. In this book, in this series, there are two things that I know of. So in book 4, I don't want to spoil it too much for the ending, but there is talk of the geography around London, and she talks about the mountains, and I'm like, there are no mountains around London. Yeah, so that's just not right. And the way that it's written, it suggests that the place that they're going to is within the home counties, which is the counties surrounding the Greater London region. So it's the commuter belt. And if she means that the place is further afield, well, there are, no. There are no mountains around London. And the other thing which I didn't pick up on, but which makes me wonder how much of the do-over I actually read, because I didn't pick this up, but I saw it in the reviews. There was someone else who was like, I'm a Londoner and blah blah blah, and I'm like, so she obviously has some phone numbers in book 3, and she doesn't start them correctly, as in the dialing code. So a London, it may have changed now, but in my day, 0208 or 0207, and then the phone number, those are London numbers. So again, it's just a little nitpicky thing. I guess there's an element, thinking about it, because I know this is what they do on all the American programs, is the numbers all start with 555 whatever. If she actually put an actual number in there, someone might try and ring it, and it could cause some problems, I suppose. Like, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt for that, but I don't know how big of a difference with what she wrote to the actual ones were there. So the one I can speak to the most is the geography, because that's what I read. So anyway, but overall, it doesn't distract me at all. I would highly recommend the series. I think that it's highly entertaining, and I had never read T.L. Swan before. I didn't know what she was going to be like. I can't even remember. I don't know who told me about it, and I'm not sure. Like, maybe I was a bit concerned about what the smut level, the smut frequency rather than the level might have been, like if it's just shag on every page sort of thing. It's not. It's a really good story, and with a very wide open door with the lights on and nothing to the imagination, which would lead me to say, if you don't like really graphic sex scenes, then it's probably not the series for you. But I would also say, if you could cope with reading that, it's a really cool series. So, and you miss out on Tristan. If you can't cope with a bit of sex, you'd miss out on Tristan. When everyone used to do, when I say everyone, booktubers that I watch talk about their book boyfriends, I'm like, what? I get it now. I get it, you know. Unfortunately, me and just about every other booktuber I watch is all has Tristan at the top of their list. So, TL Swan did something right with Tristan, that's for sure. Anyway, so that's my thoughts on I bumped the thing, sorry, on the Miles High Club. I recommend it if you can cope with the sex level. It is not sex on every page, but when there is, it's graphic. There's not much to the imagination. Just maybe don't read books 1 and 2 back to back and be put off by the fact that you've just read the other brother doing the same thing as this brother. So anyway, 100% worth having, and as I say, I am very seriously toying with actually having paperback copies of all of them. So anyway, that is my video. Have you read the series? Have you read any of the books? What are your thoughts? Share them below. Thanks everyone. I'll catch you in another video shortly. Bye for now.